Okay, let's talk about Andor. You guys want to talk about Andor, I guess, a little bit here? We can talk about Andor. So Andor is a show, a Star Wars show. I wonder if you guys have heard of it. And traditionally, the whole thing with Andor has always been, it's a different kind of Star Wars. It was very mature. You know what I mean? Tony Gilroy was like, I don't even like Star Wars, so I'm trying to change it, and everybody was like, he's so brave. And Andor also had controversy in its first season because its viewership was very low. And, there may be different factors as to why it was low, but it was kind of undeniably low, man. I mean, it used to be the whole thing. The meme was like, nobody watches Andor. Okay? That was like the whole meme. So much so that they put it on like Hulu and ABC. They were basically like begging for viewership. In fact, there were comments made by Tony Gilroy where he said something like, we thought we thought we'd have the audience, but we'd sort of be trying to convince the critics. But it seems like we're actually chasing the audience and the critics got on board. He made comments like that after the first season, which were really interesting. It's all just to say that, the viewership seemed really low for what it was, okay? Now, having said that, of course, Andor always had its sort of stout defenders, people that thought it was incredible, people that thought it was quality, people that thought it was, frankly, what Star Wars should be, and kind of different than, all the George Lucas Star Wars and a lot of the Filoni stuff that we had been getting over the past couple of years. Well, it started to really perform well in its second season. Now, asterisks. Put an asterisk next to it like Thunderbolts. Except this one is not a marketing gimmick. The asterisk is because Andor, of course, had a release schedule that was designed to chart. Okay? What do I mean by that? Well, what is charting, right? What is charting on Nielsen? Nielsen is charting the minutes watched, the millions of minutes watched for all of these shows in a condensed time period. It's like the new way we do ratings, okay? So Andor, I believe even in its third week, maybe even in its second week, I'm not sure, because I think it only had 4 weeks because it released 3 episodes a week, 4 weeks, 12 episodes total, chunked them all into a month, okay? And so Andor, I think even as soon as week 2, but definitely by week 3, hitting some huge numbers. It got up into the Nielsen charts on both the original and the overall chart, which was pretty mind-blowing, okay? But just last Friday, we got the official streaming numbers for the finale of Andor, the very last episodes. And, frankly, it fucking dominated. Check this out. Andor hits number 1 in streaming rating during finale week. Andor has been the most critically acclaimed TV series in the Star Wars canon. Now it appears it is drawing viewerships to match the distinction. Nielsen, top 10 streaming rating for the week ending of May 18, 2025, shows Andor as the number 1 streaming show/movie with over 931 million minutes watched. This week corresponds to the release of the final 3 episodes of Season 2, Disney Plus show Bluey, and Netflix hit movie Nanya's rounded out the top 3. Pretty impressive stuff. And again, Bluey's just kind of always there. Andor ratings have grown each week during Season 2 run, growing from 721 minutes to 8. So that was week 2 then, yeah. 721 millions, 820. Oh, that was week 1. My God. So even week 1, it jumps into the charts with 721. Week 2, it climbed to 821. And then 830 in 3. And then due to a bunch of strong word of mouth and well-received blah, 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 its viewership hit this 931 million minutes watched on Disney Plus. That's pretty impressive, guys. It is also, by the way, this is really interesting. It has impacted the movie ratings for the week with the nearly 9-year-old Rogue One placing 9th in the top 10 movies streamed with 179 million minutes. Guys, that's movement, man. You can still criticize Andor. You can still criticize this charting because, of course, there's all these asterisks and they sort of designed the show to do it. But here's the thing. If the game is to get to the top of the charts, then game is game. Like, however you get there, whatever, man. Like, they designed it. But here's the truth. This strategy would not have worked if 0 people gave a shit about Andor, right? So they take the interest people have in Andor already, which, by the way, here's another thing you absolutely have to give Andor credit for. It absolutely grew its audience. And I would say it grew a lot of its audience sort of organically off of word of mouth, right? Now, there was one of the reasons we know this is there was a Luminant article written around the time of Acolyte episode 4 and 5. And I remember this pretty vividly because I reported about this and I said, it looks like Acolyte is probably going to get canceled and it's like doing terribly. And I remember because so many people were like, it's only week 4 or 5. How could you possibly report that? By the way, I wasn't reporting it. I was, aggregating another report. The reason Luminant had said that was because of what they saw in the data, which was a super soft opening and then a massive fucking decline. Like, after episode 3, dude, that show tanked so far that, like, it was just never, ever going to get up to the other shows. But there was a lesser reported aspect to that Luminant report, which I also found fascinating, and I completely ignored because I didn't want to talk about Andor doing well. The truth is, in that Luminant report about Acolyte, it also showed that Andor had surprisingly strong legs months after its release and had actually started to creep up towards Ahsoka's numbers, okay? So even then, I saw something in the data where I was like, damn, Andor's actually kind of cooking there, but you know what? I'm going to completely ignore that shit. Hopefully nobody watches season 2 and we can continue to clown on it. So, fast forward to Andor season 2, and that, of course, didn't happen. It built off of that sort of word-of-mouth reach, the growth. The show certainly built a name for itself, and I think just basically off of quality. I think it's two things. I think Star Wars is still a really strong brand, which is kind of surprising. We'll circle back to that in a moment because the Marvel Star Wars conversation is actually more interesting than we thought. But Star Wars as a brand is still pretty strong, and it seems like even, despite a lot of the damage done to the brand over the past couple of years, Star Wars is still a name that's going to turn a lot of heads. So if Andor was just a really competently written science fiction show with a big budget, I don't know that it would perform this way. I think of shows like even Westworld, which had a success but then eventually gets canceled. The Ridley Scott one, Raised by Wolves, Foundation, a lot of really expensive. I think the Russos have done some. I think there was another one done by Jonathan Nolan that also kind of tanked. Big elevated genre science fiction shows have been tried a lot over the past couple of years. I don't know that Andor would be able to do what it is doing without that Star Wars name. The Star Wars name is still enough to turn a lot of casual heads and get people interested. But you also have to give credit that the show it's so competently made, and it's obviously something that people enjoy and they're resonating with. So you couple those two things together, and it kind of looks like, despite the slow start, you eventually get to a place, and yeah, you have to fudge the numbers a little bit, but you eventually get to a place where, I mean, it kind of pains me to say this a little bit, but I just have to be honest. Kathy seems to have been right with the strategy here. You know what I mean? And I think that essentially her strategy was, we know Star Wars is this big, massive brand, and we think we can do some elevated genre, or we can bring in really good writers and filmmakers into the Star Wars world and provide a version of Star Wars that appeals to a different either portion of the audience or just a different kind of person, right? And again, despite all the caveats, despite the asterisks and all of that, I think you have to label this a massive fucking success. I mean, in and of itself, getting to number 1 on the streaming charts is crazy. I will say, though, that when I went into research, because I was like, yo, when's the last time this shit happened? Is this even possible? It might surprise you to learn that Mandalorian Season 2 hit #1 on charts. It might surprise you that the movie Soul hit #1 on these charts. It might surprise you, and it did surprise me, that Falcon and the Winter Soldier hit #1 on these charts. Now, I think the truth is the streaming game has just changed a lot. These were all in 2020 or 2021. And so back then, everybody was locked down and there wasn't a lot of competition, right? There was not a lot of streaming competition. Paramount Plus didn't even exist. And they're putting out stuff. Apple TV was like very, very small. HBO Max, Discover, all these things are like really, really low. So it's not the same thing. I think charting these days, especially for a Star Wars show on Disney Plus, that's a really big deal, man. Like, that is a really big deal in today's climate. It's not necessarily novel because, again, these other shows did hit that mark. But I think given the context of the last couple of years, it's a big deal, right? So it's impressive. And I got to say something else, too. I think all of this bodes well for the future of the show and its viewership overall on the platform. Again, a lot of the Andor people, the supporters of Andor, would get so mad at me when I would talk about Andor and its bad numbers, okay? And I wonder if those people can appreciate that all the good things now that are happening for the show are because of numbers. And, like, social proof really matters. So I know we get into this discussion, and it's just like some people get kind of butthurt about it, but here's the reality. Andor succeeding is going to make more people willing to check it out. I mean, it's already happening. I mean, Theory, is checking it out. I'm probably going to check it out now. A lot of other people that might have been on the fence or maybe heard bad things about it, all of a sudden, they're basically the narrative is season 2 is incredible. Episode 7 to episode 12 of Andor season 2 might be some of the best Star Wars ever. That narrative is holding strong in the zeitgeist. It is forcing people to be more open to checking Andor out. And I do think Andor will get very good viewership for this entire fucking year. And there might be a thing where, because I think they did this before, either on Nielsen, maybe Nielsen just started doing this, or maybe the studios do this, but they'll release data on what their overall year looked like. And this was like, I remember some pretty interesting stats, like 11% of Disney Plus viewership in 2024 within the first quarter went to Bad Batch season 3 or something like that. And I was like, that's fucking mind blowing. Like, what that means is like Bad Batch 3 never charted. But what it means is like just people got to it over time enough to like make it a pretty sizable chunk of the overall viewership on the app. I wonder what Andor will look like by the end of the year, but Andor is going to be big, man. Like, this will be a big chunk of the overall traffic and minutes watched on this entire app. And so, look, if you're a person like me that kind of, let's just be real. I don't like Andor. I rejected it as Star Wars. I didn't like it. I don't like the idea of Star Wars changing to like become more commercially viable. Like, that feels like suit behavior to me. And I think a lot of people are just ignoring that fact because they happen to like the direction it's taking. And it's like, that's a weird conversation because it's like, are we talking about artistic integrity here? Or are we like, no, I think commercial art can be fine if it's to my liking. And I don't necessarily care about the creator, the person that started it, whatever, right? So that's where I'm at with Andor. But let's be real. This is a win for all the people not like me. All the people that love Andor, all the people that want Star Wars to evolve into something more mature or to be able to provide content that's a little bit more sophisticated. This is absolutely a win for those people. It's absolutely a win for Kathleen Kennedy, and she's going to start popping her head up more and more. For a while, we haven't actually seen Kathleen Kennedy on a lot of stages. Bob Iger barely talks about her. You know what I mean? The reality is that might change now. And that's how Hollywood works, too. That's how business works, too. You grab a couple of wins, all of a sudden your cachet goes up. You can show your face around town a little bit more. You're going to see more of Kathleen Kennedy now. That is absolutely going to happen. So that is... That's kind of the way that I view it. Now, there's a couple of things that I actually am positive on this. Like, here's the first thing I'll say, and this is something that Aaliyah also always brings up to me. And it's nice, because I think she just literally cares about my mental health, and she knows, like, I'm being very chill about this, but, like, I can't fucking believe this is happening. Okay, so what Aaliyah always brings up to me is that Kathy, has been looking for a win for a long time. Okay? She's been playing this game of like, will she, won't she? You know, she's going to retire. I'll die making movies. You know what I mean? Like the sort of back and forth on this whole situation. And the truth is, she's looking for a win, man. She's looking for a win. She wants to go out on a dub. Kathy, this is it, man. This is a dub that is undeniable. I hate your ass. And I would fucking love to report the demise of your strategy. And I have to give you a lot of credit. This worked. I can't fucking believe it, but it worked. This is a massive W. So please, for the love of God, take this W and fuck off. Like, go away. You did it, okay? And forever, any stupid person on the internet that wants to argue the merits of Kathleen Kennedy, they don't have to go all the way back to fucking E.T. now. Okay? They can go to Andor. Fine. Fine. Take the dub. And please get out of my face. So that's kind of a positive thing, okay? It's also possible, guys, okay? And I'm gonna try to be nice here, okay? I'm gonna try to be nice. I do think I should watch the show, at least episode 7 to 12. Okay? I should at least try and see if it really is that great. And maybe there's some stuff in there that I actually do enjoy. Maybe there's a couple issues I take with it or whatever, you know. I'm pretty particular about my Star Wars, you know. But, you know, maybe there is a way for this genre to adjust slightly to, you know, modern times, you know, modern audiences, and the sensibilities of all these motherfuckers. And perhaps if there was somebody that was just a little bit more into Star Wars, like, you know, my eyes kind of look to Sean Levy right now. You know, like I really like Sean Levy. I was a little surprised when I went back on Nerd Theory and talked about Sean Levy, like just how much Dash and Wave were like very against Levy. And I get it because Levy is, you know, commercial. Deadpool and Wolverine feels a little bit like slop, to be honest, for most people. Like us Marvel fans, we loved it. But a lot of people are like, that's kind of like slop. And so I think there's a lot of questions of like, you get Ryan Gosling, you get the Deadpool director, and now you're making Star Wars. It's like, yeah, of course. That feels a little, I understand. I understand where people are concerned. However, I am not concerned. I actually think he's super competent. I think Deadpool and Wolverine might be the weakest film in his library. And I just really think the dude does spectacle, family, and heart really well. And I'm also really fascinated by why he chose Star Wars. This guy could have done anything, dude. Deadpool and Wolverine is such a smash fucking hit. He could have done anything. There were rumors he might have got Avengers, bro. He decided to do Star Wars. So that's kind of intriguing to me. But I'm saying all that to say, like, I look at Levy and I look at the possibility of, like, his Star Wars film. And I'm like, okay, maybe there is room for just a little bit of a more mature take, like a little bit more of a visceral, real, like, dare I say, postmodern kind of a vibe that would fit within this fantasy world. Like, I don't know. I like Rogue One, but I felt like Rogue One had those mythic elements, and I feel like it was grounded in, like, the myth of the Force. So perhaps even if I have to sort of reluctantly come along and I have to be that grumpy guy that's like, it's not George Lucas Star Wars, you know, maybe it's still okay for Star Wars to evolve and change and to bring in other competent filmmakers, and maybe like the next version of this will be better, you know, or maybe I would like it more, right? Because I really just don't like what Gilroy was trying to do. But maybe there's a version of it that I can't. Now, last thing I want to say on this, because we've almost been yapping for 20 minutes here, it's going to end up being a really long clip. Last thing I want to say is, game on, Andor. And what I mean by that is, this is the game. You did this. This is the number. It's quite the achievement. And for now, you are king in the castle. But Ahsoka Season 1 was pulling similar numbers without a first season to back it up. And without multiple episodes a week dropping to boost those numbers. So, game on. And we are going to see what happens with Ahsoka Season 2. And if Ahsoka Season 2 outdoes Andor Season 2, I'm going to be the most insufferable, annoying, fucking Star Wars fan you've ever seen in your life. And by the way, Nerd Theory should be fully operational by then. And so I will blast out into the airwaves. The fact that Dave Filoni just shit all over Tony Gilroy. We'll see. We'll see. But game on, Andor. We'll see you next year or whenever the fuck Ahsoka Season 2 comes out. Let's go! Thanks for watching, and if you like this clip, smash a like on the actual video and subscribe to this channel. That way more of these clips get into your feed. I've also linked the full episode below if you want to check out the entire thing, including the Q&A we do with fans. You can also watch this show live. We do it live Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And you can also find all of my content, including the videos I put on my main YouTube channel, on the podcast feed.